Okay. So yeah, again, thanks for the introduction. This tool, it seems relatively simple, and first and foremost, I'm not a numbers guy either. Or I never was. Like, I think back at school, I was never good at maths. So for me, this was incredible. And the idea behind this is just to give you a tool to help you manage your business and look at the details and the habits. Like the video was saying before, that successful habits make you successful. And this is something that in all the places I've been, it's worked tremendously well, because when it comes to numbers and P&L and managing the business, some people do bits of this, but they don't do everything together. So the crystal ball here is the idea of forecasting and trying to look into the future as much as you can. All right. So firstly, when we look at the management of your business, look, what is it you're managing? On a day-to-day basis or in a month, would you leave anything to chance? So like, for example, let's say, next weekend, it's going to be a busy holiday weekend. You would plan the therapist schedule if you're the manager. If you're the owner, you would speak to the people in charge and say, hey, what have you got going on that day? You're not going to wait till the end of that day as a manager and then say, oh, how many therapists were in? Oh, no, we only had 2 therapists. You would plan ahead, see how many people. Okay, Jenny's doing extra time. Sarah's in on her off day. Okay, why are you doing that? Because I've looked into the future and I've seen that the business needs are going to change. So I've made a different calculation. So you're looking ahead. Same with like the design of the spa. Someone said earlier, they're looking at knocking through the spa wall and redesigning it. Well, imagine that situation. You're going to say, oh, okay, you wouldn't just let the builders do it and then you get a bill at the end of it and say, oh, it's £1 million, $1 million. That's far too expensive. You're planning ahead, aren't you? It's the same principle. Anything else? Training, your payment of taxes, health and safety. You would always look ahead, plan, I hope, and you wouldn't be left surprised by anything. So you're already looking ahead and forecasting yourself. So forecasting, a budget is not enough. And what I mean by that is you have budgets and you're planning ahead, but just because you've budgeted for something, as you know, the reality is that things don't always go according to plan. So a budget is a guideline, and also budgets are done generally the end of the previous year. So for example, for 2020, which was generally a train wreck for most people, the budgets would have been done at the end of 2019. So no one would have foreseen what was coming up. So the budget then changed. So forecasting you use for business control. So forecasting is just adapting on a monthly or a weekly basis to help you out. And there's some great benefits to this. It gives you much better preparation, really good decision making, and it gives you, and more importantly, your staff, as Marissa was saying, turning therapists into business people. And this is one of the main benefits of this. The decisions that are made, people then understand what they're doing and how it affects the business and the bottom line. Right, so P&L. The majority of places when I've been, they run the P&L is like a credit card statement. And the majority of people, they'll get their credit card bill at the end of the month. And you go, oh no, what's this? I didn't buy this. That's not mine. Someone's stolen my car. Oh wait, no, I remember, yeah. And you realize you've suddenly overspent your budget and you didn't plan ahead. And this is what people who run their business is like. The P&L is often a surprise where it comes through and you go, oh, oh God, I forgot about this. And then, oh, the profit's down and sales were good, but oh no, I forgot the training. Oh, that's gone in. Is it September? Oh yeah, September. The fees for the visa. Oh no. So this is quite a common in with different elements, and too many things are left to chance, right? So the objectives of a checkbook is these lovely things. So it's understanding the business, managing your profit better, reducing anxiety, hopefully, which we could all do with right now, streamlining it, It highlights opportunities within the business of where you can change and save money on what you're spending. Confidence, it gives great confidence to the team and for you. Better decision making, and it gives a really good accountability for the team of what they're doing and why they're doing it. Okay. So now let's look at the actual beautiful checkbook. I'm going to close this one. Okay. So I just need to get to full screen again. Okay, here we go. Right. Can you see that, Marissa?
Perfectly fine, yes.
Great, great. Right. So this is the checkbook itself. And basically what you've got, so this left-hand side here, where you have description, this is then your expenses, generally your controllable expenses in your business. And then this bit on the right, where it says expenses chart, this is the recording of each individual item that you're purchasing in a month. Okay, so you've got two sides, left and right. At the top left here is you've got the budget for the month. So let's say for October, I've got a budgeted revenue of $180,000 of sales total. So this is what you put in the budget. And for each item here, you've got your budget numbers on the left-hand side there, okay? Then what you would do is throughout the month, you would then forecast what your revenue is going to be. So what I would do in my spa at Ziggy Bay, Six Senses, is you'd say, okay, based on the room numbers coming in, based on the guests that we expect, I would put my forecasted revenue up here, which in this case is $130,000, which is around about 70% of the total revenue, okay? And then what that will do is, you see how, say for ambience, my budget is 70. The forecasted spend will then change to $51. So in other words, if my budget was 50, if my forecasted revenue is 130,000, so 70% of my total, it's reduced the amount I can spend on ambience down to 51, all right? And it's done that for every single expense for the month. And then if I go down the bottom down here, this 17,992 is the total expenses for the budget. And then here, the 12,994 is the total expenses for the forecast. So that's what I've got to spend. And as a percentage of revenue in this example, I want to spend 10%. That's the budget. And it's still 10% here. So if I spend 12,994, if my revenue is $130,000, it will still be 10%. So I'm trying to keep in that number. I hope you all follow so far. Then what I have here is, this is just a calculation of how much is left that I can spend versus budget in this one, and how much I can spend left versus the forecast in this column. And then, so how it works is this. So I've already got one item filled out in my expenses chart. But let's say I'm going to do here, I'm going to add in some, let's put some cleaning supplies in, all right? So from this drop-down list, it will find everything here that's in the description for each item. So there's cleaning supplies. I'm going to put in, I'm going to spend $150. And today's the 20th of October. So we go. So the vendor is Elnis Cleaning, and it's bleach. And if you notice, that 150 now is in the total for the month. This is what I've actually spent so far, right? My original budget was 195. My forecast there was 140, which means based on the forecasted revenue, I've overspent by $10. You see this minus here. So then I know, oh, I've already overspent my money. So it shows you where you are on your forecast. Okay. Now, whether I spend 150, maybe you need to. The point is not whether these are right or wrong, but if you imagine if I had spent this, my first question would be, did we need that? Do we need 150? What are we buying? Is it a set amount? It depends on the business, but you can look at it and say, well, all right, maybe we have to clean a certain size area, even if there's no guests. I don't know. But the idea is to give you the tools so you know. Okay, and then the same thing for any other item. So if I put, let's say, operating supplies.
Andy, can I ask a question?
1,000. You can.
Okay, so do you fill in the side that you're filling in now, the expenses side, before you incur the expense? So before I order those cleaning supplies, do I go and fill in what I'd like to spend? So I ask for a quote. At which point are you filling in what you're filling in now? After I've already spent the money, or am I filling it in when I want to spend the money?
You fill it in once you've spent it. So the idea would be that once you've purchased the item, it would then go in the expenses chart. Okay. So what you'd want to do is, with the monthly budget here,
yes,
you fill out the monthly budget first. So in your sheet at the beginning of the month, put the budget in and put in the budgeted revenue. So this orange section. And then when you're going to purchase the item, once it's done, you would then add it into this list. So here is the completed list of already purchased items. Okay. So the idea would be, as you're purchasing it, before it's completed and authorized, you'd want to check this out so that you know what you're doing. So if I said, okay, let's say I'm going to buy, I want to spend, say, 1,800 on training.
yes.
So if I put 1,800 in training, or you say your manager comes to you, I want to do this training this month for 1,800. Okay, I put it in. How does that look? So training here. Right, if I do that this month, I'm then 700, I'm going to overspend by 700 versus the forecast, 712, and I'm over budget by 294. So then the decision would be, do you go ahead with this training or not? And that decision is then made by you as the managers or you as the owners. Well, it's something we have to do this month. It's the only month we can do it. Okay. But it gives you this tool to see where you are. I've overspent slightly. What you can then do is say, we must go ahead with it. All right. So that's 700. Is there anywhere else we can save that? So, well, actually, I've got 983 with linen. We don't need to spend that this month because we've already got enough and we can hold this off for another 3 months. Great. So you've balanced out. So you know, okay, yes, we must go ahead with the training, but we've saved this linen. So we're not going to spend the linen this month. And a decision has been made to balance. And again, whether these things are right or wrong, it's all about understanding and then protecting this number. So you want to protect that 10% to make sure that this is the same and protect your profit line, if that makes sense.
Yes, I can. And then another question quickly. I'm sure everyone
Yes.
else has questions too, so maybe I'm getting them answered for them. This forecasted revenue,
Yeah.
so the budget was put forward from the P&L, from the forecasts, right? From, let's say, the owners of
Yeah.
property or something.
Yes.
Then the forecast is what you, as the manager, according to bookings, according to season, time of year, whatever, can see that you are going to generate the revenue. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then the other thing where it, two important points where it works so well is you can do a forecast at the beginning of the month, fine. But let's say I'm halfway through the month.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, okay, I'm halfway through the month and things are going really badly. So we're only now forecasting 50% of the revenue, say, for the end of the month. So in this case, 90,000.
Okay.
So we're now halfway through. You can then see where you are and what you've spent so far to say, oh, listen, okay, this month going very badly. Now every purchase halfway through the month, you'd say, what do we desperately need this now? It's a real-time forecast. What have you sold so far? Not very much. We're now predicting 50% of our revenue only. So therefore, where are we with our purchases? What often happens in many spas and many departments in many different businesses is you might be predicting 50% of revenue, but nobody controls the spend and they just spend what's in the budget.
Yes.
So they say, okay, well, I've got 4,295 to spend. It's in the budget. Well, that's fantastic, but you don't have that revenue coming in. So then you say, do you need that? Because theoretically, in a spa, for instance, if your health and beauty products here, if that is your treatment expenses, that should be in line with what you're taking in revenue, generally speaking, with your treatment revenue at least. So if you're at 50% of your revenue, you would expect a similar reduction in your health and beauty products, right?
Yeah. Cool.
But that's one of the most important features of it, that you can do it weekly or you can do it as many times as you like, but it gives you this confidence and ability to then look through your expenses and manage it. But on the same level, something else is important. In a situation where, imagine we're looking at the forecast and we're doing brilliantly, and you say, hey, we're going to forecast 210 instead. So we're forecasting increased revenue. Commonly, in this situation, or quite often what will happen, people then spend and they still don't look at what they're spending. So your revenue's gone up, but you've overspent in certain areas and your profit line is still damaged. So the extra revenue is actually meaningless because you've not taken the profit in the end. So even when the revenue's gone high, the forecasting chart, this will help you because it will help protect that. So when you're doing well, you're still looking at it and then you're maximizing your profit when you have the opportunity to, if you follow me.
Yeah. Okay, did you read Lanil's question there? That's very interesting.
Let me go back to that.
Open your chat box and have a look.
Okay.
Can you see it? Should I read it to you?
Yeah, please read it to me.
Okay, so she's saying she's curious if the forecast is always roughly 70% of the budget.
No, the forecast would be whatever you believe the business line to be. So for instance, if 6 Senses say, our budget would be based on the number of rooms in the hotel we're expecting in a month, and then the number of outside guests that might come. If we were forecasting, say, only 70% of our rooms coming in, I would then reduce it to 70%. But your forecast will depend upon many different things, but it would be unique to your own sort of business. So where you are in your own spas now, you might say, because of COVID, COVID is causing generally a 40% reduction in revenues so far. So my budget was this, I'm going to reduce it by 40%, but your forecast is what you expect the final revenue to be. Unfortunately, there's no way to be 100% spot on, because if you could, then, or if I could, I'd be a millionaire, because I'd be using this talent in my own business.
Yeah. Okay. So Lanil is saying it's an educated guess, which is correct.
Correct.
And then Shani is asking, what is your historical average for Six Senses, Andy? Is it staggered or is there a fair pattern?
There's a fair pattern with it. Up until this year, we were very consistent with our budget and our forecasts. And where the key for us was always the number of hotel rooms we had. The average spend per room was fairly consistent and growing at a certain level. And we would often underestimate our budget. So for us, when we were forecasting, when I was there from March 2019, it was a case of forecasting more. And then where this came into its own was, as I said, where we're forecasting more revenue, and it's okay, rather than just blindly spending the money and getting extra things in, because where you get busy, you say, oh, quick, so we need to buy more fruit, more amenities, we need to get more stock out. And that's where this money gets swallowed up, that you're suddenly getting things out and not managing it because you think things are going well, that people are less likely to manage it. Whereas when things are going badly, people then are more strict and then take things back. But in either situation, it's about doing it to a scientific level, so you know where your profit is coming. And at the end of the month, you're in a situation where when the P&L comes out, it shouldn't be a surprise. You should know what's coming into it. That's the key to it.
Yeah. And then Andy, I've just got a question as well, which I'm sure some people are thinking of. Right at the bottom of your sheet, you have 10% there. So if you scroll down, okay.
Well,
so is it that you work and Six Senses work on a 10% budget spend of revenue?
This happens to be ours, yeah. Now, this is not general across the board. It might vary. It will vary depending on the business. So this 10% is my number, but when you're using this tool, this will be your individual one. And to find this, you'd look historically at generally what are you spending on your expenses in a month. So you'd have your total expenses calculated, and then what percentage is that of your revenue. If it was 15% and that is your goal, then you'd use that as the goal. So as you can see, here it's 17,992 divided by 180,000. But 10% is an arbitrary number, and it will vary on spar to spar.
Okay, and you've obviously not included staff salaries, obviously not,
Right.
because that's a standard. But I see that you have put in your product spend. So do you always put product spend in here?
For treatments, yes. For retail, we keep it separate. So our retail is not part of the cost here. It's in a different P&L line.
And why is that? Is it because it's such a variable thing? Like one month they might sell a lot and then the next month not? Or is there a reason why you don't have it here?
No, it's normally, when I was with Marriott, it was the same. They keep the retail, they keep out of it. However, if you want to put your retail in, you absolutely can do and keep it in. The reason is because it's described as a cost of sale in our P&L. So it's in a different line there. Whereas here, because it's controllable expenses, it's a bit different. So with Six Senses, for instance, we have a general, the general formula is, I think it's 36.5% cost for retail. So that should be flat across the board. So everything we sell, we make sure that the profit margin is 36%. So it's very consistent. So if we sell any item, one item or 1,000 items, it will be 36. Whereas this is more of a controllable. Here, health and beauty products for treatments is obviously you're getting it out for the therapists. And if you've got, say, if you've got a treatment store, then you're taking it out. And where it becomes useful here is if at the beginning of the month you're doing some stock inventory for therapists, and then you put your numbers into this chart, and you're seeing that, well, we're forecasting 50%, and we've spent more than our budget on products. Why is that? What are we doing? Are we filling up all the rooms? Okay, don't do that. Let's wait. We don't need to fill up. We haven't got the business. Again, it's a decision.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Nicole is asking, and I was actually going to ask Nicole to comment on this, because Nicole is our numbers lady, very much so. So Nicole is asking, why not salaries?
What? So why not?
Why not salaries? Why not remuneration?
Well, because you just simplify it. So we're looking only at controllable expenses, and because salaries comes into a different line, if you start putting salaries into this, it then becomes more complicated, because you have different elements and different things to look at when you're forecasting salaries. Like in a full-time place like Ziggy Bay, where we have fixed salaries, and we can give vacations out, and we can give vacation days and PH days, then we can change their salaries, but they're on the payroll anyway. So for us, we wouldn't be able to amend it in a lower period of time because they're there. If you've got part-time staff, you could theoretically do it, but it's probably easier to do that on a separate level and keep it on the other side of the P&L and manage this independently and just manage the percentage here.
So from what I understand from this, so Nicole, just see if this makes sense to you as well, is this is more of a tool to make sure that you are not overspending, that you are staying within what your forecast is, and you're not buying candles unnecessarily, you're not buying cleaning things. And am I correct? Is that what this tool is for?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And this salaries thing, because it's a more complex thing to have, then to have it in here, it's you could have it in this line, but if you did, it becomes more difficult to manage because you've got so many other elements to add into it. Whereas here, it's a case of, do I buy this or not? Because it's one line. Whereas if I've got, say, 10, 15 therapists, and you're saying, okay, well, I've got my part-time one, I'm going to reduce the part-time hours, this one's going to do extra. You'd have to feed that into this, which would then complicate the formula. So it's easier to keep this one completely separate, but you can of course do the forecasting with your salaries as well. So all of your other lines feed into the P&L.
Yes.
So when you're looking at salaries, wages, bonuses, your retail cost, this should also be fairly straightforward, and it would all feed into the final profit line. But it's just controllable expenses is often the thing which is the most neglected, because I'd be very surprised if salaries was as much of a surprise as some of the purchases are, because in my experience, salaries is often the one which is watched by everyone because it's such a larger percentage of the total expense.
Correct. So, I mean, Nicole is saying this is just for variables, and Laniel is saying, so if you know that an expense is consistent, then it won't be on the spreadsheet. So I think everybody sort of gets it, right? Okay, does anybody have any questions for Andy? You can either unmute and ask, or you can type it in the chat box. I'll read it to him. Makes sense to everyone? And I'm not a numbers person, and it makes perfect sense to me. So, yay. I think it's awesome.